What's up, man?
Yeah, good, Jason. Yourself?
Oh, good. Welcome. Excited to have you on here. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, no, it has. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So, Nick, obviously you and I have gotten a chance to know each other a little bit, but for the audience, give them a quick background on you and Selligence.
Yeah, cool. So I'm from a sales background, just like probably the majority of the people listening in. I founded Selligence, which is a B2B tool where our mission is to enable you to reach out to the right person at the right time for the right reason, utilizing our sales triggers. So we want to be the global leader in sales triggers, where we produce around 116 type of sales triggers and the most amount in the world. Our nearest competitor would be Zoom Info. That does around 9. And the reason why I set the business up is, as a sales rep myself, a lot of individuals in the market nowadays are utilizing prospecting tools and outreach tools, but there's no personalization to them. So effectively, it's cold call and cold emails. And what you actually need to do to increase your conversion ratios on that top of the sales funnel is to have the reason to call, and you need to call people at the right time or reach out to them the right time. And that's why I set up Selligence.
Awesome. I mean, I think you're spot on with that, especially relative to where things have gone in the last year and a half or so. Where everybody's being required to do more with less. I think in a lot of ways the chickens came home to roost on something that's been been the state of affairs for longer than that period of time. But it just sort of took the current market conditions, tightening investment from VC firms and stuff like that to really make it apparent. Namely that, and I mean it's behind the name of this this LinkedIn Live, that outbound and the old things that we had all been doing as sort of our go-to-market standard way of operating all sort of just started breaking. And for me at least, it was like 2.5, 3 years ago I started seeing it, but it seems like everybody else was kind of forced to come to the same conclusion starting year and a half ago.
Yeah, exactly. And the name is in the clue on Selligence. It's sales intelligence. And yeah, what we've found is SDRs that are first coming into sales, they're not really armed with the right tools anymore, and they're asked to do a lot of research, a lot of admin. Who should they prospect? When should they reach out? And what our goal is to eliminate that research and admin for them, so they can literally reach out to the right person at the right time with the right reason. And it could be a market mover, so a new CRO joining a company. It could be a funding round. And interestingly, we've got one model where we can predict when a business is going out to raise money. So you're really getting ahead of time there and giving that competitive edge to our customers.
Absolutely. I mean, I think increasingly the name of the game is, do you have the right intent signaling? Because if you're just blindly going out after a list of ICP accounts that match some broad-based criteria, targeting broadly just based off of title or persona, like data, even before all that, what's going on right now happened would tell you that at most 10 to 20% of those in your list are actually ones that are ready to have a conversation with you. So that's a pretty big miss rate back before all this stuff sort of started falling apart. And so, I run a growth marketing agency on the side, and I mean that's the very first thing that I tell anybody that's talking to us about doing something with them is like, we got to before we do anything, we got to figure out where these people live, where they engage, and what type of signaling we can pull out of that wherever that signaling lies. And if you can't find that, like, I mean, frankly, we'd say that, this isn't probably going to work for us these days.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And look, the ecosystem, if what RevOps professionals look at now is, if we look at the ecosystem that we live within, you first started with contact data providers, ZoomInfo, Lucia, et cetera. And then the next step was intent data, right? The Bomboras of the world, 6sense. And the next evolution is, okay, give me something factual, because intent data could be cookie browsing, monitoring, people coming to your website, people searching for stuff, they could be tire kickers. So it gives a lot of false positives. And, what I think the customer now wants and what sales reps now want is actual factual data, better intent that they can action on, and they know there's that reason to call. And I think, part of the agenda today that went out is, with the downsizing markets, how can sales professionals succeed? And I think people need to use better personalization when they're sort of performing their outreach. It's going to be a bloodbath for certain companies, but the best sellers I've found is they always find a way on how to reach out to somebody at that level and provide solutions. So if you were if you're in the feet of your customers, what are they feeling right now? They've got economic headwinds in a lot of industries. They're looking at their tech stack and going, what can we consolidate? And they're looking at the markets that they sell to as well. It's like, is this the right market? Now, there's opportunities in all of those. So if I was a salesperson looking at sort of these economic headwinds, the challenges of a consolidation of the tech stack, I'll be thinking, a few things. It's like, number one, okay, so if your market is challenging, Mr. Customer, what other markets could be of interest to you? And it could be a different geo. It could be, hey, we're using, a power dialer at the moment, and my conversion ratios are, we're doing like $200 a day and we're only getting through to 5 individuals. Okay, well, have you thought about my email automation tool, that super scale? Well, no, we're getting bounce backs at the moment. Okay, well, how about we got a tool that does, warms up emails, so then, it pushes them through. And I think, when you're looking at those challenges, you need to be very thoughtful about the solutions that you can provide. And I imagine a lot of the people on this call are getting a lot of objections, where they're like, hey, your tool sounds good, but we don't have the money right now. Okay, so can you work then with your C-suite and go, okay, how can we do this better? How can we do this different? So can we offer it them for free initially, do a proof of concept? Can we change our pricing? Can we do a consumption-based model where it literally, the entry point is $0, but we're charging you for the upside? So for me, in the world that I live in, right, if I'm coming across customers and go, hey, we're using ZoomInfo, it's extremely expensive, but we're locked in until September, I'm thinking of a few solutions that we can do. It's like, right, well, how about consumption-based pricing? So we come in, we integrate with your CRM, and this is completely out there, but we'll charge you a percentage of the deal that you do on the closed one. So we back our product, you ingest it in, we can see that through the CRM. On close one, we charge you a percentage of that. So it's a win-win for the customer. There's other angles that I'm coming across, in this downsizing of the market, whereby an organization can only buy one tool and they're fixed into one tool. Okay, that tool could be coming up in August. Okay, you want to get ahead of your competitor. You don't want that competitor to renew. So, SDRs and AEs need to think outside the box here. Okay, so let's say that tool for the next 5 months is costing them an extra $8,000. Well, can you buy them out of that $8,000 but sell a 2-year contract? So you actually got them locked in on a 2-year contract. You bought them out because they prefer your solution. And then it's a win-win for the CFO and CEO when the head of revenue or the head of RevOps presents that product. So I think there's a number of things that people can be thinking about creatively if they believe they've got a really good solution to that customer.
Yeah, you said something that was interesting in there, and I think not enough people understand or think through this, especially when it comes to signaling or triggers, whatever terminology you want to put around it. But I think way too many, and I mean, you even have entire products that this is sort of where it begins and ends because it's a black box, but it's binary. Is there intent or is there not? At most, you might get like a score as far as like how much intent there is or not. But there's missing that factual context that you mentioned. And that factual context does a lot of things One of them being like, hey, I can do sort of a gut check on whether that really feels like or looks like intent signaling, or be able to do some personal weighting around that. But I think the biggest one that you had touched on is being able to provide that context, and ideally even all the way down to specified value add relative to that factual signal. And so if you're actually getting things that are tied to factual things out there, then hey, now you've got a thing to be able to drop into that outreach that says like, hey, I actually have done research, I have familiarity, I've thought through why this would be important for you, why this would be useful. And even in some cases you can get all the way down to, hey, this is likely the pain point or the thing you're struggling with, and oh, by the way, here's some value add content or something that we've shared or created relative to that. And all of a sudden, like that goes from just like a very generic blind cold outreach that we all get, a million times a day, to like, hey, this person gets it. They understand where I'm at, they understand what I'm trying to solve for, and they've actually put some thought into this. And so that's part of what I love about being able to have that level of detail and context out of your signaling.
Look, you got it in one, right? Like as a CEO, to your point, I probably get around 25 to 55 on average of these emails, sales emails coming every day. And you can see none of them are personalized. You can see they're a sequence. They're all deleted. I don't even read them anymore. It's just like delete. I'm going on to what I'm doing now. And there's every so often when someone just emails you and hits you in the eyes, and it's hyper personalized, it's hitting your pain points, and you're like, wow, okay, I'm gonna respond to that. And yeah, you got it in one there, Jason, absolutely. And I think for any SDRs on the call and AEs where they need to bring in their own demos, and that they need to do their own prospecting, it's not just about the hyper quantity. It's about the quality. It's about the quality of your outreach is what you need to think about. And even though you might think it takes a bit more time, that quality goes a long way. And your conversion ratios, backed up by Forrester and Gartner reports, gives you a 3 to 5x higher likelihood of converting those into actual sales opportunities.
No, 100%. I mean, part of what I was alluding to at the start, as far as like chickens coming home to roost, is the solution for way too long, in my opinion, has been, let's leverage tech and let's push more volume. And if we do that, then we can continue to go out and hire people straight out of college with no work experience. And let's equip them with a list, and let's equip them with some tech that's going to allow them to do things at scale. And we just know if there's enough volume that's pushed through it, then we're going to have something significant come out the other side of it. Fast forward today, and largely because of that philosophy and that attitude towards it, it's damn near impossible to get messages to land in the inbox. As you mentioned, if it lands in there, it's busy as can be with other people doing the same thing. It's really hard to even get direct dial phone numbers anymore. You pay through the nose for them, and people don't pick up anymore. So you've got your primary mechanisms that we were automating and allowing people to do at scale, that just don't really work anymore. And so you got really kind of two options. Either you can keep trying to pour more volume into it to try and make up for the decreasing effectiveness of that, or you've got to go a different route. And that other route is most certainly for everybody going to be a more manual, time consuming route. And that only works if you're more efficient and more effective in what you're doing in that more manual or slower process.
Yeah, yeah. And I think actually, is there a question you want to cover off, Jason, on from Alyssa Wilson?
Yeah. So she's asking about, what can SDRs do to help AEs? So Alyssa, if you'd like to give a little more, detail or context around that, we'll make sure to answer, towards the specifics of what you had in mind. But at a high level, what are some things that you've seen or you would encourage SDRs to drive that better alignment with their AEs? Because this is, having managed, SDRs in pretty much all of my roles in my career, it's a constant issue of like, you wind up with people pointing fingers like, hey, my SDR is setting meetings, they're not qualified, my AE is not actually following through with them, or they're missing the mark on what I did. And so how do you drive that alignment where they're truly supporting and helping each other?
Yeah, and just to add to that, and Alyssa might be sort of adding more on there. If you're an SDR, it's not just about sending a LinkedIn message and then booking up a meeting and putting it into, a meeting via a chili pipe or anything. If you want to truly add to the AE, find the customer in need. Why have they taken your call? Why are they going to take a demo on the AE? Why are they doing it? Right? Because the likelihood is everyone's got a very busy work schedule now. They're not taking your call at random. They're genuinely interested in something. So find out what they're interested in. Find that customer need. Okay, a lot of salespeople are quite lazy, and in fact that they don't actually do much discovery. They don't find the need. If you can arm that with the AE for the AE, they can then just summarize the need, and then they can sell back to that need with the solutions that organization can provide.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that touches on, what we were talking about relative to like those factual signals. And so if you can start pulling those, to the surface, both for the prospect, but also for the AE that you're working with, you know, how much better prepared are they going to be for a call if you're able to pull up and point out like, hey, these were the triggers, or these are the reasons why they're interested. This is the context that they're in, versus just going into a call blindly or with some, minimal notes around like, this is why this fits the ICP and persona criteria that was given.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned you guys have a lot of triggers that you guys monitor and leverage within this. Are there any specifically that you're seeing, a lot of traction, a lot of, really quality around, or a lot of, that ability to be able to bring that in contextually and be able to leverage that in outreach and qualification, stuff like that?
Yeah, so you've got the traditional ones which other providers look at, which smacks in the face of the SDR. So funding rounds, right? We produce probably the most amount of funding rounds in the world with the partnerships we've got, and then the NLP that we use, where we look at millions of news articles every single day, open source but also paid for, and we're able to leverage our NLP to understand which company it's talking about, the location it's talking about, and then giving it the event type. Funding round could be series A, B, C, D, F, G, I, which I think Stripe did the other day. So you've got funding rounds. Another key one is market movers. We call it champion monitoring. Okay, so there is a strong likelihood. Let's say a chief revenue officer joined a Series A reg tech. There is a strong likelihood that CRO is going to look at their tech stack, understand what's working, what's not in the first 3 months, and then probably make a call on what tech that they either want to bring in or better utilize. So that's a really heavy buying signal when somebody lands at an organization or somebody's been promoted. Those are two obvious ones. One we've got, which is proprietary to Selligence, is we're able to predict when a company's going out to raise money. So as an example, one of our funding prediction models last year, we monitor 52 million companies across North America and Europe. We're able, on this case, to determine that SteelEye, which is a reg tech, we gave them an 80% probability they're going out to raise money. But on top of that, another signal is that they appointed Chris Pennington as their CRO. So the actionable intelligence we gave is, hey, there's likelihood in a few months' time, they're going to be looking at sort of what tools to spend on sales technology, marketing, business development. So that's really important because you can't Google that, right? That's full on AI. And we've got around 18 proprietary AI models that we build. And that level of insight gives you that competitive advantage because it's stuff you can't Google. Another trigger, which is important for like cybersecurity professionals, is we can predict when a company's either been hacked or had a data loss. A lot of organizations do not disclose that they've been hacked or had a data loss. And that's another proprietary model that we built out. And there's a whole plethora, right? Across the whole sales ecosystem, there are different triggers for different salespeople that they're interested with. So, one sales rep that I spoke to the other day is selling an iPaaS solution. So think about companies like a Trade.io, a no-code, low-code integration tool. Now, this sales rep was only interested in new product releases, because if someone's releasing new products, they're likely to sort of also look at integrations. And that was an important sales trigger for that individual, so they could reach out to the head of product or the product manager and sell their solution to them. So, we cover 116 sales triggers. We're adding them all the time based on our customer feedback. And that's how we go about our business.
That's great. And I mean, one of the keys to it that you mentioned in there is is knowing your buyers. Knowing where they're at in that journey, what those triggers could possibly be, or those things that you would want to look for. Because, of course, a trigger without that context and without knowing your buyer that well doesn't do you a whole lot of good. Especially when it comes to trying to speak to that trigger or where that intent comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there are any SDRs or A's on the call today, I would now be looking at sort of identifying who my ICP and persona is. If the playbook hasn't been written by your organization, a lot haven't. Is who am I selling to and why am I selling them? And you need to understand and give that reason as to why. Otherwise, you're dead in the water. You're up against sophisticated competitors a lot of the time, and you need to understand prospecting is one thing. But when prospecting, you need to know why you're reaching out to them. And, that usually comes with the sales triggers.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it needs to, the other crucial piece to it is it needs to be a two-way conversation. So, for the reps that are, ingesting the signals and stuff like that, and then going out with it, oftentimes or ideally with support from, marketing from like a content standpoint or a messaging standpoint or whatever, or even alignment across, demand gen, campaigns that they're running. Those reps are the boots on the ground actually having the conversations at the end of the day. And so they're the ones that are going to be able to provide that context back up into, hey, that angle really worked, or hey, we missed the mark there. That didn't really seem to be the type of signal that we were looking for or whatever. And so the more that you've got that two-way conversation, typically I would imagine the better that process is going to go and the better it's going to be able to dial in, specifically for that org, that product, that motion relative to the signals you guys provide.
Yeah, exactly. And it'd be interesting to see sort of a poll from RevGenius about what's our community struggling with the most. And if my guess would be converting at high levels, that top of the sales funnel motion. And the reasons are it's not being able to reach out with the reason. And one thing I'm seeing across our community, and we sell to sales professionals, is there's a lot of deals or a lot of conversions are going out. So typical SaaS is if you're converting, let's say, 5 opportunities to every deal, that's doubled. That's doubled, right? And if there's any sales leaders or A's on here, that there's a lot of reasoning behind that. And the reasoning is, a lot of individuals were used to in 2021, beginning of 2022, pitching to the champion. The champion had budget sign off and would buy straight away. Nowadays, it's a much more multi-threaded approach. And a lot of the AEs that need to be upskilled on is understanding how to multi-thread, right? So, it's the champion may love your tool now, but doesn't mean they got budget. And we sell to sales professionals and they're quite alpha individuals. And they go, yeah, I've got budget sign off. I can buy this. The reality is if they're spending 10K, that's got to go to the CFO and CEO. And the CFO and the CEO doesn't know about your product, doesn't know you. The relationship's not there and they're not going to buy. And that's why conversion ratios are going out from opportunities to closed won quite a bit. And I think a key learning to the community in RevGenius is relationships matter. They really do. And you need to get the economic buyer involved on the buying process because there's a high likelihood they're just not going to sign it off.
No, it's great. And, what we've talked about so far as use case and stuff like that has been primarily on, the outbound, trying to get meetings set, side of the equation. But I imagine that, what you guys have from signaling standpoint can also be super powerful from a, hey, we're trying to progress this opportunity finding opportunities to be able to, reach back out with a level of context or potentially look at, hey, that stalled, but this might be a reason why we should, look back at it, reach back out to them, something like that, or even potentially have a CS, type role or play within that of like, hey, this looks like somebody that might be a risk of churning, or even better, somebody that looks like they might be good for an upsell or cross sell opportunity based off of some of those signals. How much are you guys seeing, your tooling and your signals being put to work on that side?
You know, you've absolutely got it bolt on there, Jason. So the customer success market is one of the most underserved markets around. It's all about, CS tools that show you churn risk and analytics. That's all fine, right? But the reality is, in this economic climate right now, CS and account management need a renew, they need to upsell, and they need a cross sell. They don't have a tool to do it. So when we've been sort of, selling to salespeople, and then you look to the left and look to the right, marketing and customer success or account management, we showed the tool to them, and they might have, 2,000 customers, and each customer success rep has got 100 each or 500 each, whatever, on their portfolio. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what is going on in those portfolios. So actually utilizing the tools, they're able to input the companies that are in their portfolio, and they're able to monitor what's going on. And an amazing example was this customer success rep didn't know what was going on in this company, but we showed them the tool, and we showed them actually, they were facing off to the VP of product. That's who's buying their tool. The VP of product actually moved on to another company, right? And that signaled to them, hey, this individual's moved over there. So they knew instinctively to reach out to the layer below to maintain that relationship and then hit the renew. But on top of that, that signal over there, that lady who's the head of customer success, she then passed that to one of the AEs who had that relationship. The AE then reached out to that head of product and did a new sale as a result. So the customer success, everyone's like, if you have customers, try and keep them, try and renew them, try and upsell them, cross sell, right? You're seeing it across the board. I'm seeing, some competitors like Apollo.io literally pull their pants down in terms of pricing just to keep people. It's outrageous. But if you're intelligent as a customer success or account management individual, utilizing, signals and company monitoring on your portfolio is golden. And I personally haven't seen a tool out there that can do it to the extent that we can for the benefit of that customer success audience.
Yeah, and I mean, especially what's been going on the last few years between, the Great Resignation and everything that happened, employment-wise through COVID, and then all of the layoffs and everything like that, especially in our tech space right now. That has become such a common issue and problem where, like, all of a sudden your point of contact, your decision maker, whatever, disappears off the face of the earth. And now and for the most part, unless you've got something like this, or you're going and doing a fair bit of research into or whatever, like you have no idea what happened. They just went dark, and it's like, oh, okay, got it. Like that person's no longer there. I need to go talk to somebody else or whatever. I mean, we just went through this with one of our partners at RevGenius, where it was like, for months we couldn't get anybody to reply to us, and like finally we figured out, and you're able to trace the breadcrumbs, and it was like, hey, we got a month left on your contract, would you guys like to try and knock out these things that you've already paid for? And it's like nobody over there was aware, stuff was just going into the ether, all of that fun stuff. And so I mean, that's with us, with something that they've already paid for. We're just trying to fulfill something, much less like trying to go and sell into somebody where this type of stuff's happening.
Yeah. And it's the name of the game if you're in the account management world and the customer success world. Any CEO who's running a number of customers wants to keep that revenue. So being ahead of the curve and understanding what's actually going on inside of those accounts, I think is critical, especially in today's world.
Yeah, absolutely. One that's sort of a little out of left field, but given kind of what we've talked about relative to struggles and go to market and trying to fill pipeline and get conversions stuff like that, either you guys internally or and or customers that you guys have, what are you seeing as far as channels that are effective in working for people? So like I mentioned, email is increasingly being difficult. You've got some solutions that have come up around like warming inboxes and stuff like that. But where are you seeing traction for doing that outbound motion?
Yeah, great question. I think what you don't want to do is go for every single channel because you don't do it very well. I think you try out the channels, what works well, and you double down on those few channels. So one thing I saw that didn't work particularly well were trade shows. A lot of people went there, but they were tire kickers and they were there for a good time. Now that was sort of 2022, and I think budgets are probably more constrained. And it just wasn't sort of a company offsite jolly. But the channels that we've seen are partnerships. So having really strong partnerships with organizations like RevGenius, whereby you can really work together and add value to one another, but you can really delve into, let's say, the audience of RevGenius and then add some value. We partnered with a CRM provider so that we integrate very well with, and we became a marketplace provider to them. And the key on that one, and that's produced a lot of inbound leads as a result. You got to really work on these partnerships. You can't just sign something up, pay someone money, and expect MQLs to come in through the door. It doesn't work like that. You need to work with their sales reps. You need to work with their solutions engineering team. You need to work with their marketing team in order to really get the benefit from it. Other channels that we've utilized. So previously, like with a lot of people, we had Outreach or SalesLoft. We were a young company when we first started Outreach, and maybe a story for any sort of entrepreneur starting out and building out sales team. What went wrong with us is we gave outreach to all of our individuals. They were nailing about 1,000, 2,000 emails a day. It was outrageous. And then what happened? So the MQLs were good, the sales looking good, and whoa, that's good. But 3 months' time, my email domain reputation tanked. And then we're sending like emails to actual customers, and it's like, I didn't receive the contract, I didn't receive your email. And you're thinking, fuck, what the fuck is going on right now? And Outreach and SalesLoft, these companies have got their place, but you need to throttle it in terms of the emails you're sending. Make sure it's hyper personalized. And then Jason, sort of what you're doing on the growth marketing. The next emergence we found after what we did that was incorrect, which I'm sure loads of organizations do. That's incorrect when the email reputation just tanks. You then go, fuck, I need to now spend money. I need to get my cloud ops guy to like spin up 14 different types of emails and the different URLs, warm them up so I can sort of utilize that. So Outreach was an interesting tool for us. We've used power dialers as well as a channel, but I think you need to have your cadence, your omni-channel approach. So power dialer, maybe a sequencing tool, sales triggers, contact data. But when it comes to different types of channels, partnerships have worked really well for us. I think if you're getting towards late seed / Series A, I think you need to have one or two strong partners that you can really partner with and get some good MQLs out of. It sounds bizarre, but old school stuff that I've seen that works. Literally doing a meetup where you take people out for dinner, right, with a speaker. So it's like, and I know it's slightly expensive if you're in New York, right? We got a presence there. It's like, right, so that's like $120 per head times by, let's say, 20 people. Your overlay is quite expensive, but if your ACV is 10K plus, all you need is one or two sale. And there's nothing like having 20 decision makers in the room. They're enjoying the peer-to-peer sort of chat, that they're having, and you get to build that relationship with someone. And I think, Trade shows are one way of building up relationships. That's, if you're actually good at it, though. So I listened to an interesting podcast the other day on how to really get right a trade show. And this team, they were good at it. They gain a lot of value from it. The value could come in 6 months, though, or 12 months after. A lot of the times you can't go, hey, the following month, what's our ROI from a trade show? But if you get it right, you can get a lot of money out of trade shows. And I've been to a few. I've been, SaaS, where was I the other day? SaaS Open event, SaaS Stock. I've been to all of them, and I've seen how good stands and good sales teams do a good job, and how others just do a terrible job. And the people who do a terrible job, they set up the stand, and they stand there literally like lemmings, thinking money's going to come to them, and everyone just walks by. Now, the good people, they've done role plays beforehand on like how to grab someone, literally grab someone, go, hey, great shoes, man. That looks awesome. Where are you from? Literally quick icebreakers. Hey, have you got a moment just to see, the demo of my platform? And you're zapping them. You're doing incentives on how many leads you can get in, how many demos you can do. But then on top of that, what I've seen in great trade shows is you either get the list of vendors if you pay enough money, or you can see who's going, and you get your SDRs just to call them and qualify the people who are going to get them to the stand. And then also the good ones will see who the sponsors, who the speakers, and who the people on the trade show, and they get all of those as well. So trade shows weren't an amazing angle for me, but I know they work if you do it right. Partnerships have been a really good one for me, because we're just focusing on that. But where I see people where it doesn't go so well is they're trying to do everything. They've got a huge sort of LinkedIn ad campaign. They've got a PPC campaign. They've got this, trade shows. They're doing partnerships. They've got an SDR outbound motion. They've got everything. And they're only a fucking seed stage company or Series A. And they burn through all their cash just like that. So, my advice would be sort of figure out kind of what works and then double down on one or two channels.
No, amen on that part. As far as the, trying to do too many channels all at once, and the answer to it, I'm sure, is going to be a bit of both. But how much of that do you think is just, spreading yourself too thin and not being able to optimize or know what you're doing relative to any of those? Or is it not understanding how those different channels and tactics fit into a more holistic understanding or strategy of what's going on with the prospects in their journey? And I'll give you a specific example of what I'm talking about there. So, you mentioned, the in-person events like, small format dinners, where it does have a very significant cost per head on that. And where I see those work incredibly well, as well as where I see them, really, really not work, is when they don't understand that within the context of where these people actually fall in that journey and in that funnel. And this is actually where like the triggers and intent signaling stuff that you guys provide can be so critical, is because you've got you don't want to invite people that are like tip top of the funnel or not super qualified or not super, to the point of being able to have or wanting to have an actual qualified sales conversation to something like that, because it's really expensive to bring somebody in like top of the funnel, tire kicking, doesn't really have familiarity with, may or may not be qualified. And I think it's the same thing for a lot of this stuff, is if you're not looking at that, within the context of where these people are, and you're like, hey, I'm going to throw a 20 person dinner and I'm going to invite, the first 20 people that raise their hand. It's like, that's probably not going to work for you.
Yeah. Now you've got all about the qualification. Check the persona and ICP via the sales triggers. If, let's say, you got an organization, and this is an extreme example, right? You've invited somebody to this expensive dinner, and you didn't realize, but this company is about to go through a chapter 11. They're not really going to be buying from you, right? Now, if you check out sort of your ICP and persona, and then you overlay the sales triggers, go, hey, this company's going places. They are growing like stink. They're highly funded. There's a likelihood they're going to be buying. Yeah, great. Let's get them into dinner, because there's a high propensity that they're going to be buying from me.
Yeah, the guest I had on here last week was had a really interesting strategy and take, and it was it was something that I had heard before, but it was a slightly different philosophy and way of executing against it. So we've all seen, most of us have probably even taken people up on it, where it's like, hey, take this demo and I'll give you $100 gift card or something like that. And at least in my experience in running those, it's like, yeah, you'll get more of them, but your qualification, the quality per meeting, as well as your show up rates, will typically go way down. And so you're sort of having to go and do the back of the napkin math on it of like, does that actually make sense or not, as far as what you're driving through and what that cost is. His approach to it was, okay, first off, let's get an actual true understanding of what our CAC is, and that true understanding, including the man hours it takes and what we're paying a rep to go get that meeting. And so, equipped with that actual true knowledge of what that is, let's go and let's do increasingly, valuable and pricey offerings to that target audience to try and entice them to a meeting. So, like, as they work through multiple touches and stuff like that, the offer gets more and more enticing. But doing something that's like really significant from a cost standpoint and from an incentive standpoint, but then doing really heavy qualification after the meeting is set. And so, it's sort of moving that qualification layer, slightly down funnel, where, okay, we got them in through the incentive, we got the meeting set, the meeting's not happened yet. Now we're going to go do like really deep dive qualification on them. Can even be include like some engineered intentional friction of like, hey, we've got this 20-point deep dive survey, that your questionnaire we need you to fill out before we actually have the meeting happen. And so, not only does that give you a better indication of their level of intent and commitment, but it gives you a lot more data that you need to be able to say, like, is this meeting worth it or not? And then for those that you chuck, you could kick them a $5 Starbucks gift card or $20 Amazon gift card or whatever, and say like, hey, this isn't a fit. I don't want to waste our time. But it's a really fascinating strategy, and one that I hadn't like really heard, that trying to thread that needle.
Yeah, it's an interesting take, right? Because you mentioned about CAC there and the methodology on pricing it up. And if we look at 2021, that was just shot out the window. Like no one was thinking about CAC. It's like, well, everyone's buying, so I'm just going to chuck. I'm going to like literally. I remember I got sent like 3 bottles of whiskey in 2022. This is like, I'm not going to buy from you. Why are you sending me this? But yeah, that's quite an interesting approach, is just being a bit data driven, and making sure the financials back it up.
And yeah, as you might imagine, this was a growth guy. So growth guy that had then gone on to be an entrepreneur, and was basically growth in residence at a VC firm. So it was like, as I literally told him, I was like, spoken like a growth person. I was like, that is fantastic, to come at it. Talking about the in-person events, conferences, and stuff like that. I think you're spot on with the length that it takes to get an ROI out of that type of an event. The caveat being, and a quick aside, I learned all my lessons about in-person events the hard way. So my very first B2B SaaS company was Cirrus Insight. We were a Salesforce integration for the inbox. And so our entire ICP was, are you a Salesforce customer? Are you a Salesforce user or not? I was like, if you are, then we can work with you and you would be a great customer. Because it was like, if you're using Salesforce and you use an inbox, which is everybody that uses Salesforce, then we would work with you, including Salesforce, by the way. They used us for a while. I had signed on as their VP of marketing. It was just the 2 co-founders. 2 weeks after I signed on, I was at my first Dreamforce with us sponsoring it. So that was my intro to in-person conferences. Boy, did we not know what in the hell we were doing, or not ready at all. But one of the things I learned out of that was, if you want a year one ROI on your in-person conference, because I mean, as well as I do, these things are damn pricey. You either one, get really lucky that you had somebody or a bunch of people come by your booth that were like super qualified and like ready to just buy, and that somehow covered your cost, which is not a great way to go roll the dice. Or you've done the effort ahead of time before anybody actually walks out the front door, grabs a cab, hops on a plane, whatever. And that that work ahead of time is okay, hey, we ran some virtual events or we did engagements with a partner, or we went and talked to the sales team about like the opportunities that were stalled or ready to close, whatever. We did coordinated outreach to those people ahead of that event, trying to get as many meetings scheduled, trying to leverage that event as a soft, hey, let's have a follow up, let's have a conversation, whatever. And so you actually already have pipeline that's in various stages for you that you're going and trying to move along whenever they're at that event. And that event is just sort of the excuse that you have an opportunity to get together on it. That I've seen works incredibly well and will give you a very quick ROI if you could do execute against that well.
Yeah, and hopefully there's some good learnings for individuals who have got events coming up right on the call.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also, I would imagine an ideal use case for you guys and those triggers that you guys have. So, in doing that outreach ahead of, like, here's a great way for us to try and whittle down those are sort of most qualified or have the most intent for us to reach out to ahead of, and talk about a much easier and softer pitch than, hey, can I schedule this demo for you instead? Hey, are you going to be is are you or somebody from your team going to be at this event? Like most people are going to that, one of their primary motivations is to go network, is to go meet people. And so the propensity and likelihood that they're going to say, yes, I am, or no, I'm not, but this person's going is pretty high.
Yeah, and what I've seen on events now, there's a tool called Brain Date that seems to be slipping in, which is obviously meeting up with people. People register sort of 3 weeks, 2 weeks beforehand, and that's just an easy way of connecting with individuals straight away.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know about you. I mean, it was also one of the things I learned, relatively early, but especially in, this virtual world, B2B SaaS space. Holy hell, do my close rates and my retention rates go through the roof if you've had an in-person interaction with somebody.
Yeah, of course, it's relationships. I mean, in the world now where it's all remote and everything like that, it's quite difficult to instantly build up a relationship. And a lot of the people on this call wouldn't know this, but old school psychology is you need to have 7 points of contact with someone before you build a relationship up with them. The most powerful way you can do that is in person. So one of the agendas, like, what should we do in a downsizing market? Build better relationships with your people. Build better relationships with your long-term customers. If you are in the same city as them, meet them. Literally, meet them. Because I remember when I was selling before COVID, my close ratio was like 1 to 2. Anytime I met someone, right? Meet champion economic buyer, bang, deal. Because you could build up the relationship, you could take them out for a coffee, whatever you want. Whereas over a VC, everyone's completely jumped up on coffee or what have you. They're doing like back-to-back calls from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. every half an hour. Then they got their piss break and then they got their lunch break. It's literally, there's no opportunity to have a relationship. And quite frankly, unless you chat GPT, which actually they've got competitors now with Bard and things like that, there's a lot of companies that do the same stuff and they say they differentiate. Okay. What it comes down to ultimately is, are you going to give what's in it for me? Are you going to give me value? Are you going to make me look good? Are you going to make me more money? Are you going to give me a promotion? What is it? If it ticks that box, there's going to be a couple of other suppliers that offer the same solution. Have you got a better relationship with that individual? And if you can meet someone in person, it just adds that weight.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old adage of, how do you build a successful ball bearing company? Like they're ball bearings. They're the same as
Yeah.
anybody else doing ball bearings. And you do it by service and relationships. That's how you build a successful ball bearing company. And, it's not really any different from any of the rest of us. And it's part of what, counterintuitively, I actually love about these types of downturns and stuff like that. It forces companies, at least the ones that are able to successfully adapt and be successful within it, to get back to basics. To get out of these growth hacks, to get out of these easy buttons and stuff like that. Unfortunately, you see a lot of them, just double down on the volume, the easy button side of things and stuff like that. And I'm seeing more of that than I would like. But the nature of the beast through these types of things is the market tends to sort that out for you. And at the end of the day, like, it's really back to basics thing. It's providing value, it's building relationships, it's content, as it's always been, is king, but it's well designed, well created content that's actually providing value and providing help, those types of things. And so I think you're spot on with that. You've got to do it in a relationship value add way, within that. And again, kind of back to what we started with at the beginning. Part of what I love about tools like you guys, because those triggers, those signals, give you the ability to be able to hone in on that and be able to target the things. Because like we talked about, it is a more time killing or time consuming activity, to be able to do that and do that at that level of specificity and provide that value. And so you got to make sure you're doing it in the right places.
Yeah. And I suppose just to touch on that, when in this sort of downsizing market, if you use sales triggers properly, you can actually capitalize on this consolidation that's happening. So as we've mentioned, sort of downsizing markets often lead to a consolidation in the industry. So big, well-funded players can actually accelerate because the unfunded players would just lose market share. So if you reverse engineer that and you use sales triggers and go, right, which of these players are big, right? So you select your company sizes, you select your industries, you select the geo, which ones are growing. And you can see the ones that are growing and capitalizing on this consolidation. You pinpoint those individuals because they're likely actually to be hiring. They're likely to be increasing their spend because what they're doing, they're buying more logos up in a year of consolidation, and they're going to win in the 1 year, 2 year deals that they sell and the renewals they get. So if you can utilize sales triggers to be able to understand which of these companies that are fast growing and trying to consolidate their industry, you can make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's you got to understand your prospects, you got to understand your market, you got to understand what signals are even out there, much less what value are they giving you, what are they telling you, and then figure out how do you actually leverage that and do that in a better, more efficient way. And that requires at least a decent level of sophistication. What's your sense? Obviously, you're talking to a lot of prospects. You've got a good sized customer base. What's your sense? What's your take on that level of sophistication? Like, are most of those that you're talking to understand that? How much do they need to level up? How much education is required on your part to be able to kind of get them there?
It always depends on the experience level. If someone's got 8 years experience of selling into different markets and they've been through a recession, I think that's quite important. I've sold through 2 recessions, 2 proper recessions, right? And albeit we're not in a technical recession, anyone on this call knows it's tough right now. We're pretty much in a recession in the non-technical term. Now, when it comes to speaking to new prospects, people with less than 5 years experience, almost like a rabbit in headlights. They're like, my market's dying. I've got better competition. What do I do? And we've got to sit, unfortunately, because there's a bit of evangelism about what we do because we're quite new. It's sales triggers. It's quite frankly, for me, it's the new form of selling. But we have to sit down with them and go, hey, look at your workflow. You're just using a fucking prospecting tool and then doing outreach and you're getting no results. Why don't we sit down and have a look at the markets that you operate in? Are they growing? Are they consolidating? Can you sell your tool to different markets? And we have to sit down with more junior individuals. Now, CRO, it resonates just like that. A good CRO is like, I get it. I now need to educate. You now need to educate the SDRs and the AE community on this. Because I'll give you a great example, Jason. I saw organizations, last year around summertime. They were selling to crypto companies, things like that. In America, fintechs and cryptos in America. They took an absolute hammering. Right? and they didn't know what to do. They're like, oh my God, what do I do? Who do I sell to? And we just sat down with them. It's like, look, we got what you sell you can sell to other markets. How do we identify those new markets? And we did that through basically the sales triggers. It's like, right, what's a sales trigger for you? Well, fundraisers. And who do you sell to? CTOs. Okay. Well, how about these different industries that you could sell to? So even though the overall market might be shrinking, there are actually new and emerging markets within the industry that a salesperson can tap into. And by identifying those niches and developing specialized products or services to meet their needs, a salesperson is going to gain that competitive advantage. So going back to it, yeah, look, our customer success reps have got to sit down, they've got to educate the users because it's a slight difference that they need to think about. But the people who genuinely get it are the ones who actually sell more. Hands down, they're the ones that sell more because they're pivoting into the right markets that are buying right now, they're hot, and they're able to understand with the sales triggers who they need to approach, when and why.
No, 100%. Are you primarily talking to, or that education occurring at the individual rep level? I would imagine not. It's more at sort of the manager, VP of sales, level, and then they're trying to push that down. But, correct me if I'm wrong there.
It's a bit of both, right? So you go to the VP of sales, this is what we're doing. They try and compare you with a Zoom info or Lucia's like, whoa, we provide 600 million profiles, contact data, everything. That's great, but the value is over here in the sales triggers. So there's a bit of education there, and then we try and partner up with organizations that genuinely want to use our product in the right way. So what that means is we've got a customer success rep who's onboarding this community of SDRs. We walk through, right, these are the reasons why you use sales triggers. These are the reasons why you do hyper-personalization. This is how you need to use the tool. But we also need to get the buy-in from the VP of sales, who also trains them on that process and workflow as well. And, I would imagine, Jason, in 3 years' time, us educating individuals about the benefits, right, of sales triggers would be a foregone conclusion. I imagine in 3 years' time, all the SDRs now is going to be like, yeah, I mean, sales triggers, yeah, of course, like that's stupid. Of course, I'm going to go and utilize sales triggers. But, we're in this world where it's so easy in 2021, 2022. Hey, I can call someone and just do a deal like that. Things have changed. There's more competition. The buyers are more sophisticated. There's more transparency. You need to have that competitive edge, and you need that edge with sales triggers.
Well, we're nearly up at the end of the time. We did have one question about breaking into sales SDR type roles as a non-native English speaker. Do you have any suggestions to somebody that's trying to break in on that side of things?
Yeah, if your English is slightly broken and it's improving, I think what you need to do is perform outreach. Where you're going to get someone to listen to you, right? And they're going to respond to you and then pick up the phone to you, where you can schedule a call over a VC. And if let's say I'm a Brazilian national only speaking Portuguese, and I come to America and it's an English speaking community I'm selling to, and I've got slightly broken English, what I would actually do is go to Selligence, have a look at sort of, my buyers personas, who's buying, do a hyper-personalization outreach, and that could be through an email sequencing tool, okay? Or I could text them as well. And then through the email sequencing tool, I could use a free tool like ChatGPT. That might be quite easy, right? Or look, there's other tools that, free tools like Lavender or things like that can help you on that. But that's the route that I would take. And then once I get them on a video conference, it's relationship, it's personality. You can do a PowerPoint presentation that you practiced over and over again. That's kind of what I would be doing.
Great. Yeah, and I think the only other piece that I would add to it is, as with anything, try and see if you can find a way to turn what you're approaching it as a disadvantage into an advantage. So, if you go to a large enough organization with a broad enough population they're selling to, there's a decent likelihood that they're going to have as one of their targets a place where your native language is. And so, if you can find that, then obviously that's a way to turn, what on surface seems like a disadvantage into an advantage if you can find somebody that has a presence in one of those other markets and be able to leverage that. So even if they're a US based company, there's a likelihood that, at least a significant number of them are selling into other countries where that may be their actual, first language that they're selling into. And so I've run into that many times where it's like, hey, we either stumbled into, we've got a, population of customers in that area, and we don't have anybody that speaks the language natively, or that's a place that we're trying to push into, or it's, been a target from the start, whatever that is. But being a US based, company, a lot of times it can be a challenge to find those people as, with that as their primary language or even the secondary language. So always great to see and test whether you can turn a disadvantage actually into an advantage. But all right, well, we're at the end of the time. Nick, let the audience know where can they find you.
LinkedIn, Nick Vaughan, Selligence. Connect with me, message me. I'll respond.
Awesome. Well, Nick, it's been a pleasure. Looking forward to connecting with you again and talking through some of the things you guys have coming down the pipe.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.